So with the news that Pierre Gasly has been replaced by that was the last one. What I meant to say is that Liam Lawson has been replaced by Yuki Tsunoda. So what I'm going to do in this video is compare how Liam's first two races compare to Gasly's, Albon's and Sergio Perez's, just to illustrate how pointless of a driver swap this really is. First of all, I just want to say I really don't understand why Red Bull Racing have decided to drop Liam after just 2 race weekends. I don't see why they would have signed him if they had no intention of giving him more time than this. Yes, Liam's start in Red Bull has been pretty awful, but let's take a closer look at those first 2 races. First of all, in Australia, the conditions were incredibly difficult. We saw many more experienced drivers crashing out. Fernando Alonso, for example, is known to be a bit of a wet weather specialist, and even he ended up in the wall. George Russell also had a spin. Oscar and Lando both went off the track. Max nearly went off the track, which let Oscar get by. This was also Liam's first time driving that car in the wet, so I think we do need to excuse his performance that weekend, at least to some degree. Then at the Chinese Grand Prix, this is a circuit that Liam has never driven at before, and with this being a sprint race format, he only got 60 minutes of practice before jumping straight into qualifying. Aside from a few good overtakes in the hairpin, Liam looked to be struggling all weekend. But with that being said, if you take a look at Kimi Antonelli, a driver who is much younger and has even less F1 experience than Liam does, he put in a fantastic performance in Australia to get a P4, and as well a pretty stellar performance in China too. But back to Liam. Liam's post-race radio message. Mate, it lasted 1 lap. The balance is good for 1 lap, then I have no fans and I can't get on power. I tried everything, nothing works. This is clearly a driver that has no confidence in the car he's driving. Max also said in a post-race interview that inputs that he's given the car is not in correlation to what he's getting out of it, confirming what we all believe to be true, that Red Bull is just not working this season. So why are Red Bull making the switch? And why not just give Yuki the seat at the start of the season? Red Bull obviously think, or at least thought, that Liam was the better option. There is of course a few reasons for this. Something that I've seen a lot of people throwing around is that Yuki is of course a Honda-backed driver, not really a Red Bull Junior driver, so why would they give the main seat at the Red Bull team to the Honda guy? But I don't think that's the whole story. I think this is more based on performance than it was on the politics of the team he's driving for. Before Liam was announced, he did a test session at Silverstone alongside Max. When they compared the lap times, Liam was just 2 tenths behind Max, which is exactly where Red Bull want their number 2. But that test was conducted in an old Red Bull car, not this year's model. So this would explain why Red Bull thought Liam was going to be performing a lot better than he has. And yes, you can say that Max is performing well in that car, but Max is a 4-time world champion for a reason, and he is far more used to a very front-heavy loaded car. So Liam's struggles in this car seem massively exaggerated because of this year's model. So let's compare Liam's first 2 races to those of Gasly, Albon and Perez to get a real sense of how he stacks up. First, I'll start by comparing their qualifying times and then how they got on in the races as well. For qualifying, if a driver was knocked out in Q1, for example, I compare both Q1 times, not Gasly's Q1 time versus Max's Q3 time, for example. We need to go all the way back to 2019 in Australia for Pierre Gasly's first race for Red Bull Racing. Pierre Gasly got knocked out in Q1 in Australia with a 1 minute 23.020. Max's Q1 time was a 1:22.876, so only a gap of 0.144 seconds, very close. But Gasly was outqualified by both Alex Albon and Daniel Kvyat in the Toro Rosso. In the race, Max got on the podium in P3, while Gasly came back in P11, 1 lap down with no points. Bahrain, race 2. Gasly this time made it into Q2, setting a time of 1 minute 29.526, Max on a 1:29.109, this time a much larger gap of 0.417. However, in the race, Max came back in P4, just 6 seconds off the race win, where Gasly was almost a minute down in P8. Next up is Alex Albon, who replaced Pierre Gasly mid-season just ahead of the Belgium Grand Prix. As well, this was Alex Albon's rookie season, so he was very underprepared going into that car. Alex got into Q2 with a 1 minute 45.799. Max, however, was on a 1:44.132, a staggering 1.667 second deficit to Max Verstappen. Max unfortunately was taken out on lap 1, so we can't really compare their race times, but Alex did come back in a very respectable P5 on debut for the team. Alex's next race would come at Monza. I do kind of need to skip over qualifying here because in Q1 Max had an engine failure, so set no time, but Alex did get to P8 in Q3. However, that Q3, if you've not seen it, the cars didn't make it out for their second run. Everyone was battling for a slipstream, so everyone went out really late, missed the checkered flag, and no one really set a representative time. But again, Alex had a very strong finish in P6 and Max in P8. Now let's take a look at Sergio Perez. In Sergio's first race, he narrowly missed out on Q3 in P11, setting a time of 1 minute 30.659 to Max's Q2 time of 1 minute 30.318, just 0.341 seconds off Max Verstappen. However, in saying that, in Q3 Max did put it on pole. That was a fantastic race which saw Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton battling it out till the final lap. Lewis just about managed to keep ahead, winning the race by 0.7 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen. Sergio bagged a P5 finish, which at first does seem quite good until you realise he was 52 seconds behind Max. Sergio's next race for the team came at Imola, where he actually out-qualified Max Verstappen. Both cars into Q3, Sergio set a time of 1 minute 14.446, good enough for P2, with Max just behind in P3, setting a 1:14.498, an incredibly thin margin of just 0.052 seconds. However, Max did go on to dominate the race, finishing 22 seconds ahead of P2 finisher Lewis Hamilton, with Sergio all the way down in P11, 67 seconds off the lead. Now let's take a look how Liam Lawson got on in his first two races. Lawson kicked off his F1 career with a Q1 exit, setting a time of 1:17.094, only good enough for P18. Max's Q1 time was a 1:16.018, a massive 1.076 seconds ahead of Liam. The race in Australia, as I said, was very chaotic, with many cars going off, late safety cars, drama throughout the whole race. But Max did finish in P2, less than a second off the win, while Liam crashed out on lap 46. For the Chinese Grand Prix weekend, I'm going to ignore sprint qualifying and the sprint race because there wasn't a sprint race to compare in the other drivers. So in main qualifying for China, Liam Lawson unfortunately qualified dead last on a 1 minute 32.174, while Max's Q1 time a 1:31.424, a 0.75 second gap. Better than Australia, but really not where Liam needs to be. Liam would finish the race in P15, but due to 3 disqualifications for Lewis Hamilton, Charles Leclerc and Pierre Gasly, he would be promoted to P12, but again did not score any points, while Max Verstappen finished the race in P4. Max is also now sitting in P2 in the championship, while Liam is yet to score a single point. The average qualifying gap for Pierre Gasly was just 0.28 seconds. For Alex, there is only that one qualifying time to compare, the 1.667 second deficit. Sergio's average qualifying gap worked out to be 0.144 seconds, including the one time he did beat Max and the one time Max beat him. And for Liam Lawson, the qualifying gap is 0.913 seconds. In the races, Pierre Gasly finished 8 positions behind and 4 positions behind Max. Alex Albon finished in P5 in his first race, but of course Max DNF'd. In Alex's second race, he finished 2 positions ahead of Max. Sergio Perez, 3 positions behind and then 10 positions behind. And for Liam Lawson, 13 positions behind in Australia if he finished where he DNF'd, and then 8 positions behind in China. So all this is to basically say that 2 races is not enough time to give a driver to really compare. If you were to take Alex Albon, for example, he beat Max 100% of the time in those first 2 races. Obviously, that does not tell the whole story at all, but that should illustrate the point I'm trying to make, is that 2 races is nowhere near enough time to give a driver. So where does this leave Red Bull Racing? I do rate Yuki very, very highly. However, I have no doubt in my mind that he will not perform well in that car. That's to take nothing away from Yuki Tsunoda, but I just find it hard to believe that Pierre Gasly, Alex Albon, Sergio Perez and now Liam Lawson all struggling in that car, Yuki jumps in it and suddenly will work. That's not going to happen. Max Verstappen has even said himself that Liam Lawson would perform better in the junior car than he has so far in the Red Bull. And it's going to be the same for Yuki Tsunoda. There's no way that Yuki's going to perform better in that Red Bull than he has in the V car. I think Yuki's doing a fantastic job in that car, but he's not going to be any better in the Red Bull. And again, Max Verstappen has been saying how bad this car is. This is the least confident that Max Verstappen has been in a Red Bull car since he started at the team. Just look at Max's radio messages across the last few years. After every single race win, the car's on nails, the car's on fire today, the car's amazing. This year, it's the complete opposite. He does not have a handle on that car. So there's no way that Yuki Tsunoda is going to have any hope in that car at all. So again, I just really don't see why they're not giving Liam more time. After the Chinese Grand Prix, Liam Lawson said himself, all I need is time to make this work, but that's something that I do not have. So if, or maybe more likely when, Yuki Tsunoda starts struggling in that car, what do Red Bull do then? It's just going to be more embarrassing headlines and more difficult questions in the media for the likes of Christian Horner and Helmut Marko to have to answer. So did Red Bull put a bit too much stock in Adrian Newey's design of the car? And now that Adrian's not there anymore, they seemingly have no idea how to fix this car or why it's performing the way that they do. There's been a lot of talk about how the car's always been set up to Max's driving style, having that very pointy front end. But if Max isn't happy with the car, there's no way that Yuki's going to be happy with the car, and it's obvious that Liam isn't happy with the car. I have also seen in the news that Honda are paying upwards of $20 million to get Yuki in the Red Bull for his home race. Last year, there were rumours that Honda were willing to pay up to $10 million to get Yuki in the Red Bull car. We'll obviously decline this in lieu of taking Liam Lawson on, but now that Liam's not performing well, maybe Red Bull just want to cash that offer in and get as much money as they can, knowing that they're not going to get as much points as the constructors, meaning they're not going to get as much money from the constructors. If you can bag an extra $20 million, If Yuki performs badly, at least they've got the guaranteed money coming in. I know that Liam isn't the most marketable driver ever. He hasn't got the massive following like Sergio Perez or the endorsements that Sergio Perez comes with. Let's face it, is why Sergio was in that seat for so long. So even if Yuki isn't performing in the Red Bull, at least Red Bull have got that rumoured $20 million. I've got to say, I do feel really bad for Liam. He's been knocking on the door of Formula 1 for so many years now. He's finally been given a chance at a top team. And after just 2 weeks, they've already gotten rid of him. I just do not understand why Red Bull have done this. But what do you guys think? Is this going to be the best thing ever for Yuki Tsunoda? Yuki Tsunoda? What do you guys think? Is this going to be the best thing to happen to Yuki Tsunoda in his career? Or is Yuki going to be the next victim of the Grim Reaper that is Max Verstappen? Personally, I think this is going to be dreadful for Yuki. Maybe he won't perform as bad as Liam does. If he's still getting knocked out in Q1, coming home in 12th, 15th position, whatever it may be, it's not going to be a good look for Yuki. So join me for next week's video when we'll be discussing Isaac Hadjar replacing Yuki Tsunoda. That's really mean, I'm sorry, I don't mean that. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.